tiny needle felted bunnies. How do we make these? Let's find out. Hey, it's Pam from Ben McFuzzyLugs. Thank you for coming back again. It's my Thursday needle felting tutorials, and today we have got a great beginner tutorial. It's for these felted Easter bunnies, which are so simple, so cute, and you only need two ingredients. You need two ingredients. One is a needle felting needle, and the other is about 10 inches of fleece in any colour you want. I've mainly used white, black and grey to make my bunnies, but you can use any colour you want. If you feel the need for a bright pink Easter bunny, go for it. Now, these are super simple design. They are just made from two simple shapes really, and you can get detail, although I go into details here, you can get more details in my tutorials for how to make a bowl and how to make bunny ears, and that'll give you an idea, and that'll give you a better idea. So if you want to check on them, I'll leave a link. Now, before we get started, I've been running our little poll to find out what you want a more detailed, more advanced level tutorial on, and you've met some of my other fuzzies. What have we had so far? Dragon, fox, rabbits, elephant, horse. Was that it? Yes. Oh, and leopard, cheetah. So today I would like you to meet my deer. Will he fit? Yes. He's quite a sweet little make. Obviously the biggest amount of detail is in getting these antlers correct, and then his lovely long legs, beautiful white spots, and his lovely delicate face. He's just like out of a Christmas card, and a lovely make. So if you would like to see me do a tutorial on this guy, then please comment deer below. If you're interested in more tutorials like this, then please don't forget to subscribe below. Hit the thumbs up so I know you're enjoying it, and come back every Thursday for more needle felting tutorials. I also every Monday run some tips and tricks for improving your Etsy shop if any of you are small crafters out there and are looking to improve their selling online. So let's get started with the tutorial. So little rabbits, what we're going to need is a piece of fleece. This is around about 10 inches long, but just the longer the fleece, the bigger the rabbit's going to be. And all we're going to do to start with is break this roughly in half. So you now have two pieces. I'm going to take the slightly bigger half because I can't do full half. I'm going to take the slightly bigger half and just roll this fairly tightly into a kind of tube shape. Now what I'm wanting to do with this is going to be the body of the rabbit, so it's going to be an oval with a flat bottom. So similar to the cat's paws tutorial, if you want to have a look at that, I'm mainly just keeping my thumb at the bottom, and this is going to be the flat bit, and then just felting and thinking of making the curve in the top by moving the needle over the surface, keeping it perpendicular to where I want the curve to be. So as you can see, the angle I'm changing the needles going in, that starts to create the shape we're looking for. And just going to spend a couple of minutes on this to get it fairly firm. I find these, because there's very little detail in these guys, they're actually much nicer if they're actually really fairly firmly felted. And then to keep the bottom flat, what you are doing is felting with a needle constantly perpendicular in a flat motion, and this starts to flatten up the bottom. Again, either keeping the piece moving so that the needle goes in perpendicular or keeping the needle moving. I just find it easier to keep felting in the same direction and keep the piece moving all the time. That way I know where it's going to end up and I stab my fingers less. I won't lie, I do stab my fingers, but I stab them less. And the only difference seems to be I move the needle when I'm doing the flat surface of the bottom, and when I'm doing the curves, I move the piece. So spend more time firming that up, but that'll do for a start. And then the second half that you've got left over, we're going to break that in half again. And this is going to give us one bit's our head and one bit's our ears. I'm going to go for the slightly larger bit again for the head, and then just roll it up again into an oval shape. And I'm going to think of, I want almost a rounded head with a pointed nose. So I'm going to think of the back first of all, the rounded shape, and just be felting as if I'm making a ball. If you haven't already looked at the ball tutorial, then look at that. We're just moving all round and felting to make this first of all almost into a ball, but well, almost ignoring the point, ignoring what the wee nose is going to be, just trying to get this back of the head sorted. And remember, while you're stabbing, you can also manipulate the shape with your fingers a little bit, squish it how you want it to be, and then stab it to get it into that shape. And where you stab, that's going to shrink it in the direction you're stabbing. So always think about that when you're pushing the needle in. And as that's slowly starting to take shape a little, we're then going to just be pinching and making the nose a little pointed. And going back in and getting the back of his head to make sure we don't make it too long and skinny. We want a nice fat head with a pointy nose. So rounding over the back of the head and then popping in to make the nose pointy, rounding in for the back of the head again. And once it's starting to hold its shape a bit, we go back to the body shape, and I'm looking and seeing it's slightly fatter on one side and thinner on the other, so that's great. I'm going to leave the fatter side as the bum, and we're just going to pop the head on so the nose is poking off the bottom ever so slightly, and I'm just going to felt this in, trying to keep the neck shape. So I'm not felting completely through, I'm felting from the body into the center of the head and from the head into the center of the body. So we've got, it curves from the head and then goes in a bit for the neck and then out a bit for the body. You want to make this join fairly firm because the head's going to be supporting the ears, which have a fair bit of weight. So it would just be all floppy if we don't make sure this fits properly. I've spent a good bit of time just going all over this and getting it nice and firmly felted, thinking of keeping the bottom, if it gets a bit wider and fatter, then that's a good thing, and the front a little bit narrower, and just felting into this neck and remembering your sort of rounded cone shape for the head. Now when you're thinking of the nose, think how pointed or rounded you want. Different amounts can make it cuter, just depends what you're looking for, and tend to angle the head down the way ever so slightly, so think of that when you're making it. And just decide if you want to round off the nose slightly, then you just felt into it like this. If you want it more pointed, then you felt into the sides. And just keep going till it's a really nice firm shape. As I say every time, I would spend a lot longer on it, but this is only, what, 10 minutes in so far, and we have a reasonable shape. Keep going till it's really pretty firmly felted, but I just want to show you the next step, which is using this last piece of fleece we've got left over. We're going to split it lengthways this time, and this is going to make our ears. Try and get it as even as possible, and then with this lengthways split, we're just going to fold it in half and pinch it between my thumb. If you haven't seen the bunny ears tutorial yet, then this gives you a much more detailed description of what I'm doing, but it's pretty much the exact same thing, just pinching between my fingers and felting a sort of long rectangle shape that has a curve at the top. And with his ears, we're wanting to leave the fringe at the bottom again, nice and loose, because that's what's going to attach it to his head. And just decide how thick or how wide or narrow you want the ears to be. That all gives a different feeling for your bunny. As ever, felt these till they're fairly firm, way firmer than this, but what I'm going to do now is just gently hold it just on the edges and felt into the middle to start to curve in, and you can see how immediately that's becoming a bit of a bunny ear shape, and totally pinch the bottom a bit more. Okay, and I'm just going to make the second ear in the exact same way. So fold over this bit of fleece and then felt it into the shape. I'll come back to you when I've finished that. So we have two very loosely felted bunny ears. Go much further than this, and you want them really nicely firm, and you could give them points at the end or nice rounded ends, just depending on what you like. Obviously the points at the end just involve you felting up and focus camera, there we go, felting up and down a straight line into the ear, and rounded just felting round. So we're going to attach the ears to the head with the inside of the ear pointing out the way. I'm just going to take it to the top and back of his head with the loose fibre and just felt into his head. And a little bit down the back so it joins onto his head at the back as well. And you just do the same with the second ear, trying to, if it's what you're looking for, trying to get it facing the same direction as the first ear. Felting into his head. And felting in between. Because these ears aren't all that firmly felted, they're actually quite big. They will felt down a bit smaller if you take more time. And what you want to do is again come over the whole body. We want to check that he can stand up, which he's actually not bad at, but just make sure and have the bottom really flat so he can stand on that. Make sure the neck area is nice and firm so the head doesn't wobble all over the place. The joins in the ears are nice and firm, and I'm just going to spend a bit of time. We can felt the ears still when they're on the piece. It would have been better if I'd have spent more time felting them, but remember, keeping that shape where you've got the little dent in the middle to make the inside of the ear, felting into that, felting into the back of the head. You want this so it becomes like a seamless piece. It's all made out of one piece. But so far it's been about 15 minutes to get to this point, and this is a relatively cute little rabbit. I'm just going to spend another 5 minutes firming him up even further. But you could totally stop here if you wanted. Okay, so one little rabbit. He's fairly lightly felted compared to what I would normally do, but still gives you an idea. He is quite cute. It's a sort of Waldorf expression. There's no features or anything, so it lets your imagination run a bit riot. When you felt them a bit further, it becomes more of a smooth surface, and they can stand up to quite a bit of play if you wished them to. You can also make them in any colours you want. The greys, as I said before, I prefer to use the natural rather than undyed grey because it gives the variation of colour that sort of gives a grizzly look, which is kind of cool. Got a nice black one. I find my blacks felt up quite a lot firmer and smaller than the whites. It was about the same amount of fleece, but he's come down to a much smaller size. It's just all fibres behave differently, but in black he's also quite adorable, and you can go as crazy as you like with this little squint-eared guy. All I did his body in white and then covered it, half of it, covered the back with a little bit of grey. I did his head in grey, and then his ears I felted in white rather thinly and then put grey over so they were a bit bigger, and put them in all sorts of crazy directions. So you can decide what you want your bunny to be. Obviously, if you want to add more detail like eyes and things, that's really easy, and I will be showing you how to do things like that more in later tutorials. But I think just the simplicity of this is quite adorable in itself. It's really quite cute in its simplicity, and you can almost see the needle marks in the fibre. Okay, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed making your bunnies. If you do make one, please share with me. I love seeing your makes.